Well, we know that British Steel has been through a very difficult time, and our business secretariat has been working hard with the industry to make sure that we have a future for British Steel. We've been doing that already, we will continue to do that, and our focus is making sure that that pipeline for that industry goes way on into the future.
Ah, Britain, land of Shakespeare, the NHS, and an ever-growing collection of political clowns stumbling around the Westminster Circus. And right at the heart of it, our very own Labour Party, led by the ever-charismatic, totally inspiring Sir Keir Starmer. Yes, that's right, the Labour leader with all the passion of a damp biscuit.
What the steel sector need is support and action from the government, and what we've got is a government that's missing in action. It's not having the discussions it should be with the sector, it's not doing what's necessary to save the jobs that are at risk, and they put the out of office sign up. That's not acceptable. So stop squabbling, get back to work and talk to the sector about the support that's needed for jobs in places like this, across Yorkshire and other places, very important jobs in a very important sector of steel.
But today, let's talk about someone who's just as exciting. Angela Rayner, Labour's deputy leader, who's been doing her best to convince us that the steel industry is perfectly fine, despite all evidence to the contrary. So, Angela Rayner, the same person who once called the Tories scum with all the grace of a pub fight in Stoke-on-Trent, now wants to reassure steelworkers that their jobs are safe. That's right, folks. Despite the fact that thousands of jobs are about to be axed at Tata Steel in Port Talbot, and despite Donald Trump slapping a 25% tariff on British steel, Angela insists the industry has a bright future, a trade war drama that has more twists than a plate of spaghetti and more fire than a runaway kettle on the boil.
British Steel is an essential part of our heartlands, and we will not abandon our skilled workforce. And it needs a level-headed assessment of the implications, which is what we're going through at the moment. But we will always put our national interest first and steelworkers first.
The European Union has vowed to retaliate over US tariffs, and amid all this geopolitical kerfuffle, Sir Keir Starmer is still mulling over what the UK's response will be. And if that wasn't enough, there's talk of a potential visit to see Mr. Trump in the coming weeks. Yes, you heard that right. While the EU is sharpening its economic swords, our government is tiptoeing around the idea of starting a full-blown trade war. Yes, because nothing screams prosperity like mass layoffs and foreign tariffs.
His tariffs against steel and aluminium will hit Canada the hardest, and will also hit jobs and the cost of living in our country. So in reminding President Trump who America's true and long-standing friends and allies really are, will the Prime Minister also prepare a plan for tariffs in return, starting with tariffs on American electric cars?
But don't worry, Labour has a plan. Just kidding, of course they don't. Labour's idea of an economic plan is about as reassuring as a fire safety drill run by arsonists. They'll make all the right noises, hold some meetings, maybe even send a strongly worded letter to the US. And then, nothing. A bit like Starmer's speeches, lots of words, zero impact.
I do think it's time that the court system became much more of a place where the ordinary person feels they can go, and I think that means stripping judges and lawyers of their wigs and gowns and making it much more like a GP's health centre.
Now, Rayner claims Labour is committed to the steel industry. The only problem? When Labour commits to something, it usually goes about as well as a Boris Johnson diet plan. Look at their history. Committed to Brexit, flip-flopped, committed to workers, watched thousands lose their jobs, committed to their own policies. Even they don't know what they stand for anymore. Let's take a step back and admire the circus that Labour has become. Starmer's leadership is like watching a juggler who keeps dropping the balls but insists everything is going great. And then there's Rayner, desperately trying to act as the ringmaster.
Obviously we'll have to see what comes out of the US and what that means to UK steel, but this government is committed to supporting that industry into the future.
Telling it has a future in this country.
We absolutely believe that UK British Steel has a future. We're investing in British Steel, we're working with the industry, and of course our infrastructure and long-term planning that we're doing around rebuilding in Britain, British Steel has a crucial role to play in that too.
Labour says they want to protect British industry, but they've done absolutely nothing to stop the decline. If anything, they're helping speed it up. It's like watching a lifeguard hand out concrete life jackets. Now, just to spice things up, Donald Trump has waded into the chaos like a bull in a china shop. His new 25% tariff on steel imports means British steel workers are facing even more uncertainty.
Consider taxing the UK, for example?
Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen, but we'll see how things work out. It might happen with them, but it will definitely happen with the European Union. I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And, you know, we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars, they don't take our farm products, they take almost nothing. And we take everything from them, millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure I think that one can be worked out.
But don't worry, says Labour, they'll undertake analysis. That's right, they'll analyse the problem. What a relief. I mean, imagine if a firefighter turned up to your burning house and just stood there going, yes, well, we're conducting a thorough review of the flames. We'll let you know in 2027 what we plan to do about it. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Here we have three global titans locked in an economic standoff, the EU promising retaliation, the US flexing its trade muscle, and the UK caught in the middle, desperately trying not to get scorched. For Sir Keir and his team, it's a delicate balancing act. On one hand, there's the desire to protect British industries, like our stalwart steel sector. On the other, there's the need to maintain good relations with the United States, a country that, despite its eccentricities, remains one of our most important trading partners. The government's reluctance to kickstart a trade war is understandable. After 14 years of economic mismanagement and a track record of letting down the electorate, the last thing we need is another round of tariffs that could send our economy into a tailspin. But here's the rub. While we're busy tiptoeing around these issues, global powers are not waiting for our polite British manners. They're playing hardball, and if we're not careful, the consequences could be as disastrous as a missed train on a rainy day in London. So, let's sum up Labour's grand strategy. Pretend everything is fine, promise the world, deliver nothing, and then blame someone else when it all goes wrong. Meanwhile, steel workers across the country are left wondering if they'll even have a job next year, while Labour continues performing their little Westminster pantomime. Oh yes, they will. So next time Labour tells you they're committed to something, just remember, that's politicians speak for we'll pretend to care until the headlines move on. And with that, ladies and gents, we conclude today's show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, or Angela Rayner might personally show up at your house and tell you everything's fine while your furniture is on fire.